Hey, everyone! Welcome to Storytelling Time, the place where every story comes alive. If you love getting lost in thrilling tales, gripping mysteries, and epic adventures, you're in the right spot. I'm your storyteller, and here, we don't just tell stories, we bring them to life. Whether it's fantasy, mystery, horror, or even a bit of comedy, we're all about immersion. So grab a snack, get comfy, and prepare for a journey that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single chapter. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the Storytelling Time family. Let's dive into the stories that await, starting now. Whispers Beneath the Ruins. Ricardo was a seasoned archaeologist and expert on ancient civilizations, whose reputation was built on numerous sensational discoveries. His name was well known among scholars and adventure enthusiasts worldwide, but his thirst for discoveries and new knowledge was never quenched. He never considered the possibility that the only discovery he would make in the Amazon jungle would be his own destruction. The locals who greeted them in the Amazon looked at the group of explorers with confusion and fear. Every evening, they gathered around the fire in silence, as if performing an ancient ritual of protection. Their words were brief and firm: "Do not step into the ruins. You will not return." But Ricardo was determined to prove that all of this was just superstition. Driven by his curiosity and scientific instinct, he paid them no attention. As soon as he saw the massive stone structures wrapped in mist and dark thicket, he felt something calling him. Some unconscious force that whispered to him to step forward. "These ruins are not just remnants of a civilization, they are something more," he said to the others as they slowly and resolutely passed through the hidden entrance into the darkness. The darkness enveloped them, and the sense of eternal cold wrapped around them more and more. The silence that reigned was suffocating. There was nothing alive around them. No sound from animals or birds, no movement. Only stones emitting a silent solitude and weight. Ricardo's senses began to blur as the path they were following started to change. The stone walls seemed to grow more unnatural, almost as if they were twisting, covered with inexplicable symbols and unclear signs. The air was unbearably heavy, and the smell of stagnant, moldy decay and death was everywhere. As they searched for an exit, he began to feel the presence of something he could not explain. An ancient creature, invisible yet insatiable. Its presence was felt in the cold, in the whisper that could not be heard with the ears, but was everything Ricardo heard in his mind. He bent down and touched one of the walls, which was older than anything he had ever seen. His hand came upon something smooth, but somehow moist, and at that moment, he felt trapped by the inner force hidden within these ruins. The force began to pull him, to embrace him, and things started to change. He felt as though he were sinking into the ground, unable to move. Before he could scream, his body was enveloped by the thick roots of the plant, which wrapped around him like snakes. The roots of this ancient plant began to twist around him as if they were not only consuming his flesh, but also his very consciousness. There was no escape. Every attempt to free himself was in vain. Ricardo was swallowed by the dark creature, leaving behind only dark silence. Sarah was incredibly intelligent and deeply devoted to science, but she also had a heart that burned with a passion for the search for truth. She believed that every mystery was solvable, that every enigma had its explanation. And it was precisely this belief that made her vulnerable. When she stepped into the heart of the ruins, she felt something strange in the atmosphere. The air seemed saturated with an alluring, sweet scent that began to envelop her. This scent drew her toward a small, dark cave where she discovered a strange plant. Its flowers sparkled like diamonds in the darkness, and the leaves seemed alive. "What is this? How has no one discovered it until now?" she thought. Her heart raced with excitement, but also with fear. Sarah couldn't stop. She approached and touched the leaves. Immediately, the plant began emitting some kind of vibrations that passed through her and penetrated her mind. Suddenly, her consciousness blurred, and she felt that this moment was special, that she had to accept it. The plant's leaves began to open like petals, inviting her toward them. "This is the place where all knowledge will be revealed," something whispered in her mind. Her eyes widened, and her mind began to fill with visions of ancient civilizations and forgotten secrets. But the very plant that had seemed so beautiful began to envelop her. Its leaves stretched like tendrils, holding her in place. Something inside her began to fill with light, but she could not break free. The plant consumed her thoughts and began to swallow her essence. She felt its power surrounding her more and more, and all her efforts to escape were in vain. "I should have given up," she thought in her final moments, as the plant consumed her entirely. Thomas, who was always the strongest advocate of logic, did not succumb to the fear that accompanied the locals' warnings. He was convinced that the ruins were simply part of the natural magic of the Amazon and that everything could be explained by scientific facts. But soon he discovered that this place did not obey any of the rules he knew. As he walked through the narrow tunnels, he felt something inexplicable. Time began to distort. The path ahead of him seemed to dissolve and then return, as if it were a spinning mirror of reality. Hours disappeared and returned, and images of people and creatures Thomas had never seen passed through him like shadows. "This is impossible," he muttered, feeling his mind starting to unravel from the chaos. He couldn't understand what was happening, but he felt something enveloping him. Something invisible, something he couldn't escape. The air thickened, time blurred, and his sensations began to slip away as if they were part of a nightmare. Thomas began to run, but in the tunnels, time was not the same. He had no idea where he was. The place swallowed him, like a continuous cycle with no exit. There was no escape. And he too was consumed by the dark forces of the ruins. James was the most confident and self-assured of them all. Seeing how the others began to disappear, he started to feel stronger, more certain in his decision to explore the deeper, unexplored parts of the ruins. But it was he who became the victim of something greater than himself. James was a man who believed in himself more than anything else. He was confident that things didn't happen by chance, and that every mystery had a solution, as long as you had the courage to solve it. It was this confidence that drove him deeper into the heart of the ruins, after seeing how the others started disappearing one by one. For him, it wasn't about fear, it was about the challenge. He felt like the bravest person in the world, ready to uncover the secrets of these ancient walls, while the rest of them began to pull back. "There's no way I'm backing out. This is just part of the game," he told himself as he ventured further into the tangled and sinister parts of the ruins. The stone tunnels grew tighter and wrapped in darkness. The air became heavier, but James was determined to uncover what lay at the heart of these ancient catacombs. Something strange, however, began to happen. With every step he took, the shadows around him started to distort and move, as though they had lives of their own. The shadows rose, twisted, and dropped along the walls. They looked like living beings that were watching every move he made. At first, James told himself it was just an illusion. But the deeper he went, the more intensely he felt the shadows following him. He sensed he was not alone. The air began to warp, and his sense of reality began to fade. He started hearing voices, low, almost indecipherable. They came from every direction. "These are just old walls creaking. There's nothing unusual about this," James muttered, trying to reassure himself. Then, at one point, he felt something pulling at him. His hands were wrapped in something slippery and cold. It was like roots, digging into his body, but he couldn't see what was causing it. The shadows began to engulf him, and the walls started closing in, as if tightening around the entity that dared to cross the threshold of this hell. Seconds before he slipped into the abyss, James tried to scream, but the sound vanished. There was no time to realize what was happening to him. The shadows swallowed him whole, and he fell into the void, into something that was more than death, something that was part of the ancient, dark force of the ruins. Liana was different from the others. She was calmer, less confident, but at the same time, she was strong. Perhaps that's why she was the last one left alive, at least for a moment. When her friends started disappearing, she felt real fear for the first time. But she tried to stay calm and keep her composure. Maybe, she thought, if she explored a little more, she could uncover what lay hidden within the ruins. This was her chance to not only find answers but also discover the very essence of the dark force that had consumed her friends. And then she saw it. The creature. The ancient plant that looked so innocent and beautiful at first. Liana noticed that the plant was not just wrapped in old roots but also spread a network of dark, almost translucent threads that expanded and merged with the earth. She felt something drawing her in, but she wasn't sure whether to give in. Drawn to the mystery, Liana approached the plant. "Is this, the force that has consumed everyone else?" she whispered to herself. But the plant was not just a plant. It was a being with its own consciousness. The leaves began to move, as if preparing to open. She couldn't tear her gaze away from it, despite something within her telling her to run. The air started to grow thicker, and the feeling of heat and cold alternated as if nature itself was trying to devour her. "You are part of all this," she heard a voice in her mind. It was the plant's voice, but it was also the voice of everything living in this world, dark, mysterious, and irresistible. Liana felt the earth itself wrapping around her, its roots and leaves beginning to coil around her and pull her deeper. "There's no escape. You are the last one," the plant whispered. She tried to pull away, but it was too late. The plant's roots began to wrap around her arms, and the pain was so intense that she couldn't break free. Every part of her body was being consumed by the dark threads wrapping around her. She tried to scream, but the air was so heavy that she couldn't get a sound out. Suddenly, the light disappeared, and darkness consumed any trace of her existence. The last of the group was swallowed by the ancient dark force that lived in these ruins. It was not just a plant. It was a being existing beyond time and space, built from ancient, dark magic that needed to consume all life to survive.